Hello, I'm Maureen with Playful Pedagogy, and this is the third video in the Playful Thinking series where we explore Harvard Project Zero's visible thinking routines, or VTRs, and how they can make learning more purposeful, more playful, and more powerful for every learner, and more fun. Today we're talking about compass points, another of my favorite routines. So let me start with a story from my classroom. We had just finished reviewing some resources about the scale of our solar system. Two of my favorites were If the Moon Were a Pixel. If you haven't seen the website, you should totally check it out. It is phenomenal. And in the awesome video To Scale the Solar System, Wiley Overstreet and his team drive out to the Nevada desert and model the Earth with the size of a marble. They place the planets true to scale, and they need 7 miles just for our solar system. My learners were stunned when they learned this. And then I told them we're going to build a model of the solar system in our classroom with 10 meters of space. But before we touched a single piece of paper, made a single measurement or calculation, I handed out a graphic organizer, a compass, divided into 4 sections. What excites you about this project? What worries you about this project? What will you need? And what steps will you need to take? A few minutes of quiet thinking. Then we shared. The excites section was full of exactly what you'd expect. Space is cool. Building stuff is fun. I want to make Saturn's rings. It was lovely. But the worry section, that's where it got interesting. Several students had written some version of the same thing, the scale. They had been paying attention to the video when we watched it and the website when we explored it. And they knew that a true scale model in 10 meters was mathematically impossible if we actually wanted to see our planets. One student had already started scribbling numbers in the margin of the paper, and another had written simply, "How small does the Earth have to be?" That one worry, genuine, specific, mathematically grounded, became a driving question for the entire project. And the compass made it visible. So, what does that have to do with compass points? Compass points is another VTR from Harvard Project Zero's Visible Thinking Framework. It uses the metaphor of a compass, the 4 directions, north, south, east, west, each representing a different angle of thinking to help learners explore an idea, a project, or a question from multiple perspectives. In its original form, the 4 directions are E, east, for excites. What excites you or energizes you about this? West, worries. What concerns or unsettles you? N, north, is needs. What do you need to know more about? And then south is stance, S. Where do you stand? What's your next step? Simple, memorable, and flexible enough to work across almost any subject or age group. And the flexibility is something that I want to talk about because the way I use compass points has evolved a little bit from the textbook version. So I use compass points in one of 3 ways. The first way is the project compass. In the story I told at the beginning about the solar system, I used compass points as a project launch tool, a graphic organizer that learners fill in before the project begins. This helps them figure out what they need to do. I swapped stance for steps. The small change makes it more action-oriented, and learners do more than just reflect. They think about the start of their plan, and I know where their anxiety is concentrated, so I can address those worries right away. Version 2, the 4 corners. This is the classic physical version. You post the compass directions around the room, north, south, east, west, and give learners a statement or a prompt and ask them to move to the corner that best reflects their responses. So for example, I can imagine how this could go with an ecology unit if the prompt was something like, the wetland should be developed to bring jobs and economic growth to the area. And I can see a student walking straight to the worries corner with their arms crossed, saying very quietly but with complete conviction, "the frogs." Just that, 2 words, and it could launch 15 minutes of genuine discussion. I know exactly which of my students would be the one to respond like that in my classroom. The quiet certainty, and that's what a good routine does. It creates conditions for that moment. Version 3 is the reimagined compass. This is another adaptation great for language teachers. This is when I'm with my English language learning students and I'm teaching adverbs of frequency, for example. I turn the four corners into a frequency scale. North for never, south for sometimes, east for every day, west for what? I need more information. Then I give a statement. I eat cake for breakfast. Now, most learners can respond to that straight away. They never eat cake for breakfast. They sometimes eat cake for breakfast. Very few would do every time they eat cake for breakfast, but some students might not understand what that means. Depending on their culture, cake is food for celebration and breakfast is something you eat every day. They just might not connect. And so they might choose to go to the what corner, like, what does this mean? I don't understand. And then I can give them more feedback, more information. For example, I can give them a picture of cake and a picture of breakfast and put them together and say, cake for breakfast, and make it a little bit more clear for them. The what corner gives them somewhere to go that isn't wrong if they don't quite understand yet. It's an honest signal that they need more information before they can answer the question. And when learners go there, I can respond with giving them just a little bit more information, comprehensible input, something that makes the meaning clear, and that then they can move to the corner that best fits with their actual response. This version is doing two things at once, teaching the target language and checking for comprehension without anyone having to admit that they might not fully understand. It's supposed to be safe for them to say, I need more information. The what corner allows them to ask for more information without embarrassment. So why does Compass Points work? Well, I think there's a few reasons. First, it teaches perspective taking before opinion forming. Many discussions start with, what do you think? Which means the first voice in the room often sets the direction for everyone else. Compass Points interrupts that by asking learners to consider both what excites and what worries them about the same idea. It builds complexity in before they need to speak out loud. Second, it values the incomplete thought. A student who writes the scale in worries hasn't necessarily finished thinking, but they've started. They're being specific and honest, and they can grow that answer as they need to. The routine treats this as real and worth building on, and it lowers the bar for participation. They don't have to have a complete idea before they can start. And third, especially in the project version, it turns anxiety into a question. That worry about scale didn't disappear when the student wrote it down, but it stopped being something inside their head and something on the paper, and that they can make a plan to address. So, what are some of the playful twists for Compass Points? I have a few for you, and I'll try to keep them brief. If you want to know more, they're listed on my website under the blog for Compass Points. Compass Points is naturally energizing, especially in the Four Corners version, where learners are moving and committing physically to their choices. But there are some more ways to make it even more playful. The compass trail. Each learner starts in one corner, writes their thought, then physically rotates to the next corner and reads what someone else wrote and responds to it before adding their own thought for that particular direction. Then the learner moves again. By the end, every compass point has different voices representing learner through thoughts and ideas, and this gets them to look at the problem with different lenses. Compass detectives. Learners read 4 anonymous responses to a prompt, one for each direction, and have to figure out which compass direction each one belongs to. They're reasoning about reasoning, which is beautifully metacognitive, and it can be done as a card sort or a race or something to make it a bit more engaging. Then we have compass versus compass. 2 groups of the same prompt but secretly receive opposite briefs. One group loads their excites, the other loads their worries. They share their compasses without revealing the brief. The class has to spot the bias. It's a little sneaky in how it can help students reframe their thinking. It's kind of like way back in the day when you were in debate club and you were asked to play the opposite than what you would normally choose, and you have to kind of think through the pros and cons that are on the opposite side, which actually helps you argue your true feelings when you get to go back to that side. So that's kind of the thinking there. Some tips for compass points. Adapt the directions to fit your purpose. For example, I adapted them as excites, worries, needs, steps, or never, sometimes, every day, what for my language activity. You can even abandon the cardinal directions and don't do NWSE at all. You can do love, loathe, wonder, would change for a book response, for example. Once you start thinking of the 4 directions as flexible, then you'll see compass-shaped thinking opportunities everywhere. Make the prompt genuinely provocative. The more debatable your statement, the better the compass activity is, the more engagement and fun your learners will have. Avoid prompts with obvious right answers and try something that's super debatable, like a hot topic or a hot take. School should be 4 days a week. Zoos do more harm than good. Smartphones should be allowed in class. These are real questions with real tension, and learners know that. That tension is the engine, and it's what keeps things entertaining and engaging. You can use an image instead of a statement. So show a photograph, something ambiguous or something surprising, something from your current unit or a unit you're about to introduce. Ask them what excites them about what they see or what worries them. This is a wonderful way to open a new unit and gives you some insight into what learners are bringing with them before you get too deep into things. Run it on a real decision, a class trip, a project theme, a new classroom rule. When the steps direction actually affects something, learners engage differently because they know that there's a chance for them to do real change. And this is one of the most direct ways to give them genuine agency, and they rise to the challenge. Compare compasses over time. Run the routine at the start of a unit, save the responses, and run again at the end of the unit with the same prompt. And then ask learners, what has changed? What stayed the same? It's a beautiful bridge into the next routine in the series, I used to think and now I think, and makes growth visible in a way that a test doesn't as much. So stay tuned for that one. So I challenge you to try this yourself. Find something coming up in your classroom, a project, a new topic, a statement with some genuine tension in it, and give learners a compass. 4 sections on a page or 4 corners in the room. Allow them a few minutes of quiet thinking time and then listen. Watch what fills the worry section. Watch for what the student scribbling the numbers in the corner might be concerned about. And if the what corner surprises you, if learners go there for reasons you didn't anticipate, follow it. More input, more context, more comprehensible meaning. That's not a detour. That's an addition to the lesson. Join me next time for the visible thinking routine. I used to think, now I think. I hope you have a day full of play. See you next time. Bye. You post the 4 compass directions around the room, north, south, east, west. I don't know what direction I'm facing right now. But you post the 4 compass directions. Okay, we'll start.